Here we are again, Jeff.
Here we are.
What was it, just a couple weeks ago? We were in LSI in the UK.
Yeah, it was a fabulous conference. We really enjoyed it there.
So Avamed, you're here on behalf of Moon, and then we can go into a little bit about Moon for the viewers.
Okay, sounds good.
So take me through Moon, what you guys are doing.
Yeah, Moon's a really exciting company where we're really building a new category of robotic surgery. One that not only changes the scale at which robotics can be used, but helps the bottom line of providers and the quality of care for patients. And what we're doing is developing a system that enhances existing laparoscopic tools and techniques and allows surgeons to do something really important, which is return to the bedside, return to surgery, with the ability to do surgery the way that they were trained. It takes 9 years to train a general surgeon, and you don't want to layer on a bunch of technology after that and ask them to go back and figure out how to use it. So, coming right out of school, they can hop on our system and be proficient and have enhanced capabilities in robotic performance.
Has the thesis been proven out that it can accelerate that 9 years using the Moon platform?
Yeah, it's a good question. It hasn't necessarily been proven, but we have done we have gained a lot of experience in the clinic and shown that you can use our system without slowing that surgeon down or slowing those procedures down. Typically we've been able to do 4 procedures in a day, really easy, and that includes turning over the robotic system. And that's unheard of with a lot of the platforms that you have today, which require lots of different draping, lots of different setup. It can take 45 minutes to set up a Da Vinci type of system, and with ours, it's done in sheer minutes.
I'm going to guess the platform, because I've seen the platform, and those of the viewers that have not, go online, look at it. It's not as stealth as it used to be.
Yeah.
Thank God. It's got to be a lower cost entry point. And I bring up cost, not for cost's sake, but for access of care, right? So we have outcomes, we have access to care, and we have a system that right now, the robotics, primarily is in tier 1 hospitals.
Yeah.
And so there's Moon broadened access of care now because it can be afforded by tier 2 ASCs, rural hospitals.
Yes, 100%. That is our goal in development of the system, and we are focused on making sure that our system is accessible to all patients, all hospitals, all doctors. And in doing that, like when you look at the existing platforms, the current cost of ownership of a Da Vinci system is exceeding $8 million at this point. And that's really tough to accept in our current healthcare system. And so our focus is how do we dial in and optimize costs from the get-go so that we're enabling facilities, high efficiency facilities like outpatient centers, like ambulatory surgery centers, and regional hospitals to be able to bring in our system and use it and provide care with it to their patients. And that does a lot of really important things. It keeps their doctors happy too, right? And from wanting to leave to go to the big metropolitan area where they have these larger platforms.
Yeah. So the viewers might not know this, but you're not new to robotics.
Yeah.
You were, I think Fred Moll came after you as employee number 1 at Auris, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that's right. I was living in Colorado, and Fred gave me a call and said he's getting this company going, and I'd be great for it. And he moved my family out from Colorado back to the Bay Area, and it was April 15th, 2011. It was tax day, I remember that. Sat me down in a conference room. We just had a conference table, no chairs, and said, okay, have at it. And we got going from that point, and we started in ophthalmology and spent about 1.5 years doing ophthalmology focused on retinal and cataract surgery. Built out some great technology for that. And then started playing around with micro cameras and building little micro endoscopes, and found a great application for that in interventional pulmonology, where you're going after peripheral lung lesions for biopsy. And
Yeah, and
diagnosis.
that's a $6 billion story with J&J on an acquisition, or somewhere around there.
Somewhere around
A
there.
rounding error somewhere
Exactly.
around there.
It was a fantastic adventure, and I was happy to be part of it.
Yeah. So you've always had lots of choices. You and I know each other from the Potrero days, from Dan Burnett's companies, and Oris, of course. You had a lot of choices before you settled on Moon.
Yes.
What was it about that technology and that call point that made you say this is the one? And by the way, it was outside the country.
Yes. Yeah. It's headquartered in France, which is great because it gets to make a lot of trips to France and Paris. Our office is in the heart of Paris, and so it's easy to get people to go there, right? So what attracted me to Moon? I think it's a great question. I never thought I would work on a soft tissue robot. I had seen a lot of soft tissue robots out there, and there wasn't anything appealing. But what really attracted me was two things. One, the technology, and two, the leadership. Anne Ostoise, our CEO, she's a fantastic leader, extremely authentic, and she understands that for us to be successful with our platform, it mandates simplicity and workflow integration, and those cannot be compromised. And I think the last thing about Anne that is great is she helps build a cohesive team, one that really cares about each other and works together to solve problems. And on the technology side, I think what's extremely important as we look at it that attracted me to it is the understanding that, again, that simplicity is so important, but laparoscopy is a very fluid and dynamic procedure, right? It's soft tissue. These organs and tissues are moving around in the abdomen as you're working on it, and so you need a system that is just as adaptable and just as fluid, and that's what we've been building at Moon, and what makes me see it as such a high potential system.
I'm sure you interviewed enough surgeons that are using other soft tissue platforms. OUS, you got Ascensus, and in the US, but you've got the Da Vinci, the elephant in the room, the gorilla, if you will. What did you keep hearing back from surgeons who, one, haven't made the decision to go to a soft tissue robot yet, and two, those who are on a soft tissue robot that may convert to a Moon platform? What are they telling you?
So, one, that it's an absolute joy. They really like being able to come back to the bedside and do laparoscopy easier than the way that they were trained. And I think the second thing is, when it comes to the larger platforms, they find it to be a less stressful environment in the operating room. They're at the center, they understand what their team is doing, they understand what's going on with the patient, they're in full control of the instruments, the vision, and so it's a much more relaxing experience for them. And that's the same for the surgeons doing just regular laparoscopy. In regular laparoscopy, you have another person there that's controlling your eyeballs and controlling the tissue that you're working on and dissecting. You know, one wrong move can be catastrophic, and so having the comfort that all of this is stable and that you're in control of all of it is extremely comforting and relaxing for the surgeon.
While you're explaining that to me, my brain, because this tells stories and pictures, I went to, I grew up in a 5-speed, actually a 4-speed, and I'm like, okay, would I really feel comfortable in a Tesla? The answer is no. And if you let me feel the gear shift and the clutch, and where I go back to where I learned to drive, that visceral experience, the joy that comes out of driving a 5-speed, right? Being able to really control the car, the motion, that's what came to mind.
Yeah, I think that's 100% accurate. You know, with our system, the weight of the endoscope, the weight of the instruments is all compensated by the system in real time. And so you're actually maintaining that tactile feedback and that interaction with the tissue, and in some ways it's enhanced because the weight of the instrument, the mass of the instrument is absorbed by the system. And surgeons love that. That's a very powerful and an important part of surgery.
The data side of robotics is what everybody claims is the future, and the robot itself will become ubiquitous and merely the transporter of data to provide insights and outcomes. And well, we might get there one day, but I'm not sure it'll be, in the next 5 or 10 years. What about the capability for data on board on the Moon platform?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Intraoperatively, AI and data could definitely have a lot of value, but there's significant regulatory hurdles that we're all trying to navigate there. Outside of the start of the procedure, I think there's also a lot of value that can be achieved. And so what do I mean by that? Setting up a large platform can take 36 minutes with the best team. And that doesn't fit well with high volume centers, like the outpatient centers that thrive on this efficiency. So how do you use the latest in three-dimensional sensing, the latest in three-dimensional AI, the stuff that powers our autonomous cars now? How do you use that so that the robot understands its environment and helps configure itself, helps adapt itself to that environment, and set itself up so that things happen quickly? I think that is a great area for AI in robotics, and that we're looking at with Moon, that really enables a lot of possibilities.
Where do we sit on the commercial launch side of things, if you can share that with us? Where would we look at first point, coming to the US, starting in Europe, since it's a French company?
Yeah, so we have regulatory pathways that we're working on right now, both in the US and the EU, and we're well on our way to commercial activities before the next financing.
Do you want to give us a calendar guesstimate or a year?
I can't disclose that at this point.
I have to ask. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
What have been the aha moments in the development of the Moon platform that you didn't foresee, both pro and con?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thinking back, one big aha moment was how important the ease of attachment of instruments to our system was. And we had something that was very elegant, but it still took some tinkering, some fiddle factor. But we found that with some significant engineering, we can actually improve it so it was something you didn't even have to think about. You just move the instrument over and it connects to the system. And when we finished building that and brought it to the surgeons, it was game changing, right? Because it's so transparent to their workflow. They don't have to think about, how do I get this instrument attached to this robot? They just move it over. So I think that was a big thing. I think the second thing was, in our clinical experiences, the ability for the system to be so rapidly reconfigured for different types of procedures. I mean, we've done 6 different indications at this point, and they're radically different. They're multi-quadrant procedures like colorectal bypass, and where you're working up towards up in the chest, and then you have to switch over and you're working down. And we're able to accommodate that very, very quickly. And looking at the kind of large-scale mainframe platforms, that's just not something that's easily achieved, right? And so that was also a big aha moment, and really leaning into that adaptability even more so that our system has that flexibility.
And you mentioned different clinical applications. What's the regulatory pathway look like? Because it's gotten more strict, more severe with the FDA on robotics, over the last couple of years, to the point where you might as well be pushing a PMA through these days.
Yeah.
So what's it look like for you guys?
Fortunately, we've had lots of great conversations with the FDA, and we have, a good pathway with them that we think is achievable. And it's, we're not as complex as some of these other systems, and so that means our pathway is not as complex as well.
That makes sense. Now, I want to touch on it. You and I, we're going to do a panel at LSI on it, but we shifted to robotics, which was more fun there. But what was it like on the expat side of things heading over to Paris. Not a bad place. And I think
Yep.
we talked about the kids were learning French.
Yes.
And then now you're back in Connecticut.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, we spent just over a year in France, where Moon is headquartered, and helped, to build out the technology and the organization there. And it was an amazing experience. Paris has a fabulous ecosystem for MedTech startups. There are a number of different robotics companies as well, and it's growing every day and attracting people. And so yeah, I mean, France has a very close place to my heart, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to be back there. The kids continue to learn French and do well. So
That puts you at a disadvantage. We talked about that. So they can communicate like Martians over the table.
They do,
You
yeah.
don't
It's
understand.
and I have no idea what they're saying. I can only trust that they're not saying anything bad about me.
Well, I always appreciate your time, Jeff.
Yeah, of course.
Always good to see you.
Thanks, Joe.
Take care, bud. I'm Joe Mullings from the floor of AdvaMed 2022. Be well.